This is Chuck
And Kaylee.
with Toe Tag Reviews, and we're partnering with 60cc Brewing Company in Toledo, Ohio. This local brewing company is pet-friendly and allows your four-legged friends to join in on the fun.
The owner's name is Megan, and she offers a fun and warm experience. 60cc Brewing Company makes everyone feel like family. They have a loyalty program every month that only costs $5.
They do trivia nights the first Thursday of every month from 6 to 7:30. They also have prizes and pints the third Thursday of every month.
So be sure to check out their website to see what beers they have up on tap and the apparel that they offer. Check a link down below in the description.
And as always,
Slash you later.
The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
Oh, you're so cool, Brewster! Everybody's a suspect! Hey, Ted, where the hell's Corkscrew? Don't fuck with the Chuck!
Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, was directed by John Carl Buechler, if that's how you pronounce the name. It's also the introduction to Kane Hodder as Jason. He's known throughout the horror genre as playing Jason Voorhees. He's done it the most. He's done it from this installment all the way up until Jason X. I love his performance as Jason. This is probably going to be a hot take, and I'd like to get some feedback from you guys on this. He is up here, performance-wise, but his movies are down here. They're some of the weakest in the franchise. Just giving you guys a heads up, when I get to Jason Goes to Hell, I'm going to fucking bury that movie. Also, John Carl Buechler, he saw Kane Hodder's performance in a 1988 movie called Prison. He saw how dedicated and committed he was to playing that bit. So he said, I have to have him as Jason. And that's how Kane Hodder got brought on. C.J. Graham was supposed to reprise the role, but because of what Buechler saw in Kane Hodder, he went that route. The MPAA had their hands all in this fucking movie, and it shows. It was supposed to be a lot more brutal. For example, the sleeping bag kill was supposed to be super graphic, but we see Jason swing the sleeping bag one time at the tree, and unfortunately that was it. And a lot of the kills in this movie are done either off screen or right when they're about to happen, then they cut away. And it's just super underwhelming, because when I think of Jason Voorhees, I think of brutal, dismembering, going balls to the wall, killing, you know what I mean? This movie, he was definitely tamed, and it shows. And I feel like it kind of hinders the movie. That's just my personal opinion. I know a lot of people love this movie. I like some aspects of it, but I'm not a diehard fan of this movie at all. Another fun fact is Crazy Ralph. His name is Walt Gorney. He does the narration in the opening scene.
There's a legend round here. A killer buried, but not dead.
So the movie begins with, we see Tina, who's a little girl, and she witnesses her drunk, abusive dad slap her mom. So she runs down the dock and gets in a little boat. As the dad goes out there to kind of apologize and get her back, she wishes that he was dead. And then, since she has telekinetic powers in this movie, she does a very good imitation of Sissy Spacek and Carrie. The same crazy face, the same everything. It was so spot on. She ends up collapsing the dock, and the dad ends up dying. And years go by, and she's still dealing with the trauma from it. Her mom takes her to go see Dr. Cruz, who's really only here to exploit Tina. He's just a giant fuck ass, if you ask me. The dude's just a turd that needs to be flushed. He tells them to go back to the cabin at Camp Crystal Lake where her dad had passed. He thinks that it's supposed to make progress, in a sense, which, if you've ever seen movies, they never fucking work out that way. He sets up a video camera, and he's telling her to you gotta focus on your emotions, because when you focus on them, when they're at its peak, that's when you can use your powers. And he wants her to move some matches, and she ends up getting real pissed off and moving them and igniting them. She storms off and goes to the end of the dock. She wishes her dad back to life, but Friday the 13th, guess who comes back to life? Jason Voorhees, baby. And we get to see Kane Hodder, who's built like a brick shithouse. The dude's a fucking beast. He's tall, he's burly, just everything about Kane Hodder, his performance is great. My only downside to that is throughout his installments, he's just constantly shoulder shrugging and clicking his jaw, and it just, I don't know if it's just done too much, it just doesn't hit for me the way it's supposed to. but the way he looks in this movie, his skeleton's exposed. He still has the chain from part 6. He's just like full-on zombie Jason. It's so fucking cool, man. We see Jane and Michael on their way to Camp Crystal Lake because Jane wanted to throw Michael a surprise birthday party. Their car ends up breaking down, and Jason picks them off one by one, sadly. Once he sees Jane get killed, he fucking skedaddles on out of there, but ultimately Jason gets him. Nick goes over to invite Tina to a party for Mike's birthday party. Everyone at the party kind of welcomes her, and we get to meet Eddie, who's like this science fiction like graphic novelist or something, and he kind of gives a brief description of a story that he's working on. To me, it kind of sounds cool. 30,000 years in the future or some shit. Like, it's total science fiction porn. I don't know. Like, I like sci-fi, so we get to meet Melissa, who's just a total fucking biatch. At the party, Tina gets to see like these projections of Jason, which I know she has telekinetic powers, but that's not really how it works. You don't see projections of shit. And ironically, it's of the victims that he's killing. So like it just kind of gets real muddy, and this movie's just very kind of clunky. We see some couple hiking out in the woods, and the guy ends up looking just like the greatest hero of all time, MacGruber, baby. He's got the sweater, the flannel, the white long john shirt underneath, to a T. Jason ends up sneaking up behind him, punches through his chest, which automatically kills him, but he ends up snapping his neck for good measure. That's the Jason I want to see in this movie. I want to see him fucking be brutal, but unfortunately they're not because of the goddamn MPAA. Jason goes to kill the girl, and this is the iconic sleeping bag death, where he takes the sleeping bag and whacks it against the tree. It's supposed to be a lot more, but like I said, it only happens once, one and done, that's it. Tina and Nick kind of have a heart-to-heart by the lake, and we get to see Melissa like spying on them, and they're just kind of telling each other their backstories and just kind of feeling each other out a little bit. They end up sharing a kiss, which is pretty nice. At the party, though, Melissa ends up making fun of Tina. She has Eddie put his jacket on backwards to make it look like a straitjacket. Tina obviously gets pissed off. She takes Melissa's like pearl necklace, and we see it raise up, and it just breaks, which is a huge letdown because I was expecting to see it either like choke Melissa, or I like to see her get super pissed and like maybe have the jackets like get tighter and like restrain them more, you know? I feel like that would have been like a more simple yet effective moment than what we see, but she just storms off. Tina ends up wanting to leave, but Dr. Cruz is being a total fuck ass. She ends up throwing a giant fatback TV at him. Like, she storms off, and then she runs up to Nick. She says that, "I think I've seen your cousin die," and like I said, that's not how telekinesis works. Unless I'm the dumb one and doesn't fully understand telekinetic powers, but you're not supposed to have projections of shit. We see Russell and Sandra end up going skinny dipping. Sandra ends up going in, and as Russell's getting ready to strip, Jason comes around the corner and with an axe gets him right in the face. Once again, I would have loved to see it. It's such a quick cutaway, and it's supposed to hit, and it just doesn't hit for me. He ends up going in the water and drowning Sandra. He like just pulls her under and kills her, which is like one of the worst kills of the movie. But we see in Dr. Cruz's office, he pulls out the metal shard that Tina was talking about. He like just goes to take a walk in the woods and sees a dead body, and it's the same metal shard. He ends up going back to the cabin. Tina's mom is in there, and she's seen the spike, finds like his audio tapes and videos, and sees for herself that he's just there to exploit Tina, which is a fucking dickhead of a move. He pretty much blackmails them and saying, "I'm gonna put her back in the hospital against her wishes," and like, this dude has it coming for sure. Like, this guy has it coming. Maddie ends up giving herself a makeover, and she wants to go out and find David, but she finds a dead body and ends up running back. She goes into like a barn, I guess. Jason's in there, and he punches through the wall, and he grabs like a sickle or a scythe. I would have loved to see this, you know what I mean? But it's, once again, off screen and quick cutaways and lacks that punch, you know? We see Ben and his girl having sex in the van. They think that they hear Michael, so Ben gets out and goes to look for him, and Jason like just kind of grabs his head and like crushes it. His girl, I forget his girl's name. He grabs her and takes like the party horn that they were blowing, stabs her right in the eye, killing her, and it gives it like this cute, like adorable. We see Jason end up ripping the power out of like the circuit box, which A, he's still wet, and B, that's live electricity. His ass should have been fucking fried. Tina and Nick, they end up finding Michael's body. They end up going back, and Robin and David finish up having sex, and David goes to the fridge, and in this really cool aerial shot, we see like a lightning flash, and Jason's like off in the corner. It's very subtle, And I think that was a very effective shot. That's one of the good things about Friday the 13th is it's got a lot of great, like, subtle scares like that. I'm a big fan of simple yet effective. Jason ends up killing David, cuts his head off. We see him kill Eddie. We see Robin kind of get up and go around the house, and she finds a cat for some fucking reason. It's just there. The cat jumps down, and she ends up like sitting down by the window and sees his decapitated head, and she freaks out. Jason breaks in the room, grabs her by the throat, and as he's getting ready to throw her out the window, her back's against the window, but when we see her go through it, she's facing forward. Maybe it's just like bad editing, or maybe I just overlooked that, but I thought that was like a big what the fuck moment. Dr. Cruz and Mrs. Shepard go into the woods to find Tina. A lot of people complain about this movie. It's just the constant back and forth, constantly going back and forth in the woods for no reason at all. But they have yet another argument. We see Jason show up with like this giant badass hedge trimmer or something. I don't really know what this tool is. Jason ends up like chasing them. Dr. Dipshit ends up sacrificing Mrs. Shepard. When he kills her, like a bunch of blood goes all over Dr. Cruz, and he ends up getting away for a minute. Tina shows up and sees all the blood on him and is asking, "Where's my mother?" Dr. Cruz is scared shitless, so he's like, you gotta help me. But she kind of makes the connection, like, mom's gone, blood's on his shirt. So she ends up running away. Within like a 2-minute span, Jason somehow gets rid of that weapon and gets a weed whacker? What? Don't get me wrong, it's a cool scene, and he definitely kills Dr. Cruz in what I would like to be a very violent way, but he just cuts him in the stomach one time, and that's it. I don't know, man. I don't want to keep stressing, but like the kills in this movie are very lackluster and underwhelming, and it definitely hinders the film. But Tina finds all the dead bodies, keeping that horror trope alive, because you're supposed to do, in like horror movies, you're supposed to find all the dead bodies and you end up being the final girl. She ends up seeing Jason face to face. She ends up using her telekinetic powers, and she electrocutes him in a puddle, and you think he's dead, but he's not, because it's Jason fucking Voorhees. She ends up going inside the cabin. Jason breaks in. She throws a fucking couch at him. A couch. He gets up. She uses her powers and pulls a fucking Al Snow and hits him in the head with a head. Melissa shows up, and Nick's trying to be like, hey, you gotta stay with us, safety in numbers. She's like, fuck you guys. So she goes to leave, and Jason kills her with an axe to the face, and he fucking yeets her right across the room. Nick and Tina end up running upstairs. Jason follows, and she takes like the light bulb and like the light fixture, smashes him in the face with it. He falls down the stairs. As they're getting ready to leave, Jason comes out of the fucking floor, grabs Nick, throws him across the room, knocking him out, I guess. Tina ends up squeezing his mask so tight where like blood and pus and just ooze is coming out of his head, and like that's what I want to see. I want to see the graphicness of it, if that's a word, graphicness. They end up going through the floorboard. She ends up using her powers and sprays Jason full of gasoline. She ends up lighting him on fire. If I remember right, he set like a world record for like how long he was on fire for. I think it was like 40 seconds or like 45 seconds or something like that, which is fucking crazy. And that just, like I said, that just shows the level of commitment and dedication that Kane Hodder brings to the table. And that's probably why he's known as Jason, and I totally respect that. The house explodes. Jason is not burnt at all, which is really weird. He still looks exactly the same. He ends up pushing Nick onto the boat, knocking him out yet again. This dude's a pussy. Are you ready for this? Tina's dad pulls a Mrs. Voorhees, jumps out of the fucking lake, grabs Jason, takes him back under, and that just goes to show that there is no depth of what a parent will go through to save their kid. Even though he's like an abusive drunk, like it's a redeeming quality, but you're still an abusive drunk. I can't respect that. It was just a super corny ending. Like this franchise is known for like reusing the same shit over and over and over. Depending on how you feel about it, it could be good, it could be bad. To me, once is great, twice is like, okay, and then every time after that, it's just like, come on guys, get your head out of your ass, come up with something better. This has been my review for Friday the 13th, The New Blood. If you also like Friday the 13th content or just movie content in general, you should go over to Zoe's movie review. Tell him that I sent you. Super genuine dude, and I love just talking back and forth with him. Enjoy his content as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and until then, see you later.